Now, coming back to the questions, there were a few rather general questions, but also a few very direct questions. So I'm sort of paraphrasing it. I'm not going to copy paste all the questions. One of which was about the meaning of deontology. You could have really figured it out. I mentioned it briefly in the video clip that it's the study of obligation or permissibility. Okay, and it comes from the ancient Greek word dai, means necessity or necessary, and you will see a lot of such ancient Greek terminologies in this course. Okay, ontology is a later term. Its roots speak about what is objectively out there in the world, but deontology in itself means that we look for what is necessarily permissible. Okay, what is necessarily permissible. And to sort of sum it up, by assuming that you have watched the video, and if you have not, I really encourage you to watch the video. There are two broad points that I said will sort of cover the aspects of deontology. One is to always treat human beings as ends and not as means, and this has got its relation to a particular type of moral reasoning, or reasoning in particular. People always morally also reason in that way. That's called hypothetical imperative. So if we say, for example, if I can get his or her friendship, then I can probably get some tips for exams. That's a hypothetical imperative type of reasoning. So there we are not treating the human being as an end in himself or herself, but we are treating the human being as a means, okay, as an instrument. Deontology is against that attitude of treating human beings as means. Okay. The second one is about if you had watched the video, you might have seen the two traditional understanding about subjectivity and objectivity, as well as reason and experience. And Kant sort of neatly sums it up by saying that, similar to physics, mathematics, or biology and so on, I'm not very sure whether there are universal laws in biology. Maybe there are. Okay, biologists might disagree. Moral truths also are universally valid. Okay, it's not just a particular truth that is valid for a culture or a religion or some group. Say, for example, codes that we have, these are all relative. These maintain relative validity, whereas deontology speaks about universal validity, something like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Okay, and if you have watched the YouTube video by Hank, I think it's most probably he has done it better than me in terms of the animation and other things, so that will definitely help. But as we go deeper, we will sort of divert from the sort of understanding that is really required at a school level. Okay, so we may move up. That's for the school level, the short clip. Okay. Again, type in your questions if you have some. Otherwise, you can also listen to me. The few questions that I received are not really puzzling, but it's puzzling. I can see that it's puzzling from your perspective. Okay, and broadly, if I paraphrase, it looks like this. Why are we talking about different theories in ethics when there is actually no need to get into a debate about what is good or what is bad, because everyone knows this. Okay. Otherwise there won't be guilt. So this was one of the questions. So if something is done wrongly, automatically guilt comes in, and people confess because of guilt. Okay. So why are we having this second order sort of discourses and theories and so on? Okay. So for example, cheating in exams is not accepted. This is straight and simple. Why are we having different theories? The answer is, it's not that straightforward. Okay. The solution to such cases are not straightforward. So would you like then to say that, oh, here is an instructor who is saying that maybe we can cheat in exams? I am also not saying that. I am saying that there are different approaches, and if you weigh an action with these different approaches, at some point of time or context or scenario, maybe this is allowed. Okay. And in the whole purpose of this course is to see these exceptions, or things like why there are differences. And I'll be jumping the gun if I want to really answer your questions. So let me do that, and then again in the clip I'll go with the normal pace. So here we have three basic theories, as I said in the clip: deontology, utilitarianism, and virtue theory. Deontology focuses on a universal principle similar to physics or maths. Utilitarianism focuses on the consequence of actions. Okay, the consequence, the outcome of your action. And Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, the major legendary figures who propounded it's also called consequentialism, but utilitarianism is a much accepted word for this. If your action provides greater good to the greater population, okay, in the world, then it's allowed. Okay, so cheating is allowed when it provides greater good to the majority of the population. Therefore, you see even governments going in that direction. Okay, a lot of our moral actions are weighed on the basis of consequence. Okay, consequence, not based on any principle, but based on any consequence. So we'll look at a few examples, and again we'll go for a few systematic reasoning in the clips, not in here but in the clips. So, and again, virtue theory talks about attributes in the individual. Okay, very similar to say for example, if I have a particular attribute or a property, then I'll behave in a particular way, very similar to the way a machine works. Something like a car has got a collision avoidance system, it will behave in that way, unlike a car that doesn't have a collision avoidance system. Okay, as simple as that. So human beings have properties similar to electrons and protons. They also have properties, and based on those properties they behave in a particular way, go in this direction or that direction, this spin or that charge, etc. Similar to that, human beings also have properties. Those are moral properties, and Aristotle claims it as virtues. And if you have virtues, a certain set of virtues, you are prone to act in a particular way, and based on those virtues something becomes moral or immoral. Okay, and so on. So going forward, and again to summarize, irrespective of consequences of an action or consequence of an action, I should not break a promise. Okay, according to Kant, I should never break a promise, or I should never lie, or I should never cheat in an examination, etc. But if this particular action, breaking the promise, yields benefits to a majority of the population, then I can break it, says the utilitarian. Okay. And again, if I there's no if and then in the case of virtue. What there matters is I might break the promise if my moral fiber is really low, meaning if I have not fostered my properties like honesty, okay, that's a virtue, courage, okay, and sincerity, etc. So depending on which virtue dominates the other one, I may or I may not break the promise. Okay, I may break the promise for a friend. Okay, then I am using some other virtue over the virtue about honesty. Okay, so on and so forth. So far, no questions. So I'm moving ahead, and I'll wait till you comment on this. Okay, so here is something that I left with you in the last live session. I asked you to think about a batchmate of yours who, if things turn out good to you, might go like this. I mean, the unfolding of events might just happen like this. Say you have a batchmate who is always inefficient, okay, and you know for sure that he or she is inefficient to the core, okay, but somehow managed to pass the course, in this IIT, which is pretty much possible, and I see that always. But is a good friend nevertheless. Okay, so the person has goodness in him or her. Now, imagine that in a mid-career stage, 15 years down the line, the old friend rings you up and asks for a position and comments that I am going through a bad patch personally as well as professionally. What could be your options? Okay, and there are similar discussions happening in professional ethics books. Okay, now I would have, say for example, given him a job in my capacity in the same firm, or influenced some people to give him or her the job in my company. Okay, that's possible. Okay, that's based on the principle of faith to the friend, and if you're going in that direction, I mean, irrespective of exceptions, you have the right to sort of help your friend, and that comes as a primary obligation. Okay, so that theory will interpret the whole situation in a different way. Okay, but can I universalize it? That's the question. Can I sort of universalize this exception? Can I do it for all, or can all people go through the same process of helping their friends, where for sure that that person is inefficient? Now, so that is a thing to worry about. In the case of the utilitarian, the worry will be what benefit will it give, what sort of goodness will it bring to the majority. Okay, if it's fine, then you may go for it or you may not go for it. But then most probably the answer is in the negative and not in the affirmative, because for sure that this person is going to ruin the setup of the organization. So I'm just giving the benefit of doubt to the capacity or the efficiency of the employee. Okay, so there you're going against, and according to virtue, you really will have to worry about what virtue dominates in your individuality. For example, if it's a true unconditional sort of friendship where integrity matters, okay, then that friendship, the virtue of having a sincere friendship with your friend, might just dominate the other virtue about being sincere, to the company. Okay, so there you might just go for it, but if your sincerity is uh, below the scale of your, friendship, then you may not go for it. So, and here again you have a possibility to go for it. Okay, I will show you how in the subsequent clips with other examples, and here again you have a possibility to deny. Okay, so to go back to the question, isn't it pretty straightforward, and a moral action is a straightforward action? Answer is no. Okay, and there are even more theories. Okay, we are only introducing the three major theories, but if you take other theories, then it gets really complicated. Okay, so there is no right and wrong, inscribed in such a way that this is the case and this is what you have to follow. There are multiple perspectives based on different theories. Okay, so that's how the whole landscape pans in our discussion, and I'm going to give you a few more examples, and just to sort of take you off guard with this certainty that there are right thing to do and wrong thing to do. Okay, here is my favorite, and sorry if I have not made it clear in the sentences. So just assume that a criminal with a heavy track record of cold-blooded murders and so on is caught while conducting a crime. Just assume that he evaded the justice system for long, but somehow the police caught him. And imagine the case, you might have seen this in Hindi movies or even in Hollywood movies, that on the way to the trial court he meets with an accident. Okay, it could be he or she, and sorry for this gender insensitivity. When I was typing, it sort of came out naturally that the criminal is always a he. The criminal can be a she also. So he or she meets with an accident and was taken to a hospital, and the doctors then say that he lost all his memory. It is clinically proven that he can't remember even his name. Okay, he is not recognizing the judge, the victims, or anyone. I don't know whether I shared this story with you, but there are some real life similarities in here with certain other cases. So now in this scenario, given that the individual has lost his memory, should we punish the individual or should we let him walk free? Okay, now the fact remains that he has committed 100 murders or something of that sort. Okay, opinion gets divided here based on the kind of theoretical framework we are using in ethics. Okay, is he responsible and accountable for the crime even if he or she is unable to recall any of those incidents? Okay, I usually give an example of I forgot the whole context, but I can roughly remember something like and there are also similar cases happening in other places that I have heard of. So just assume that I have given accidentally an F to an individual who was so brilliant and he deserved an A. Okay, in record also everything is clear. Okay, but while entering the grades I did some mistake. Okay, and then suppose something happens and some committee is called to evaluate. By that time, just imagine that there was a big earthquake and all the documents are gone. Suppose if it's in hard copy or the scripts are burnt, or in one of the Indian universities there was an incident when the script was eaten by cows. Okay, cow, an animal. That's also a possibility. And also just assume that I have lost memory about this F and A thing. Okay, and if I don't have any memory of that whole thing, and I don't remember even the face of the student, which is more or less the situation right now as well in the online thing. And if the committee scrutinizes, am I responsible for this? Because the memory loss is not related to the incident, so therefore that's an independent case, and the earthquake is also not related. I didn't trigger the earthquake, but the fact of the matter is that the victim suffers. The guy or the girl received an F. Okay. Now, this people might say that, oh, here there is a case against this person and he should be penalized. Okay. Take one increment from the promotion away and then correct the mistake by giving him an F plus something else, whatever it is. Okay, giving him an A. Now, many people would go against it based on the theoretical framework that they believe. They may say that it's not required. Okay. Now here is an improvement of the same case. Okay, if you are interested, suppose that the same criminal, while in custody, influences a doctor financially and then does some sort of invasive procedure, some sort of operation. In that surgery, it turns out that the doctor has actually deleted his memory, erased his memory. This is a different scenario, but only slightly different. Can he be then punished in here as well? Answer is yes and no. Okay, yes, if you believe in principles and if you believe in a retributive principle, like there are victims and victims should get some sort of retribution. But if you say that for what? Because the whole individual as a unity has lost memory of the events. Okay, I don't have any memory of giving F, or this criminal has got any memory of killing or doesn't remember any of these victims. Okay, therefore perspective, as I said, from the individual's point of view, the person who acts, that point of view goes into one direction, and the perspective from the consequences or the victim's side goes into a different direction. Okay, so it's very tricky and puzzling. Okay, and the same happens in professional ethics. Okay, so whether to report something, not report something, whether to tell the truth or lie in a context, these are all dependent on the kind of theoretical framework that we impose. Okay, so I think I have answered the broad questions that you had. Why is it all not very clear? Okay, because it's not clear, but from your point of view, it might just appear that it's all very clear because what is wrong and what is right is already known to you. Okay, that's not the case. Okay, and people fluctuate. So more examples on the way in these clips that I'm going to send you. Okay, and if you have questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, I think since you are not really participating, I don't know why do we punish criminals. Okay, somebody posts this in YouTube, I'll lose my job. But the simple answer is, in society, that's how naturally it evolved, that in society, if it has to run in a particular way, then punishment is required. Okay, but a lot of punishments are fine. Say, for example, for stealing, you give some fine and say 3 months jail or 6 months jail. But then if you look at the global pattern of punishment, it's pretty much clear that nobody has got any clue. In some places where it's relative, ethical frameworks, if you steal or if someone steals, he or she loses limbs. Okay, so you cut off the limbs. There are harsher punishments. In older times, at the time of monarchs, if somebody was found to get into adultery, for example, or cheating, etc., people were burnt alive. People who were gays and homosexuals, they were burnt alive. Okay, and so on and so forth. But there is no clear-cut guideline on any of these. Okay, these are all part of the system in a certain context and a certain demographic context, and there were practices and we sort of improved on those practices. Okay, now that's one aspect. That's the correct answer, but there is also another answer to this, which goes something like this: that we punish because actions have to be accountable. Okay, otherwise if there is no individual's accountability, then there will be some sort of anarchy. Okay, some sort of anarchy, like more or less the situation right now. I mean, right now in the sense of education. Okay, there are nothing happening because of the pandemic. Okay, and people are worried about their futures and so on and so forth, and no one is accountable for that. Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, why do we punish criminals? You can write a whole PhD thesis in philosophy for this. Okay, but there are multiple perspectives on this. The law made for punishment ethics are taken care of. I didn't really get the question. So in ethics, as I said, we discuss kind of from a second order perspective. Okay, we are again I sort of have it. So if you are saying, like, aren't there codes of ethics that will take care of punishment? Okay, yes, there are codes of ethics, but codes of ethics are first order debates. Like there may be codes of ethics from religion, from a particular country, from a particular organization. Yes, but they have decided it, but based on what, nobody really can figure out. Okay, so if you do the same crime, maybe this is a kind of social experiment you can do, but it's a risky thing to do. Take a small petty crime, or I shouldn't say crime, a petty offense of slapping someone. Okay, and travel to 80 countries or 100 countries and do this and experience the different kinds of punishment. If you are a masochist, then probably this is a good social experiment. I mean, you can really see in some countries it will be a complete let off. They are not probably going to do anything. In India also, maybe, I mean, if in India maybe you will get a slap back, but I don't really know whether the authorities are going to file an FIR unless you really follow the procedures, okay, with the police and so on. So codes of ethics are there based on that punishment is settled. If we do something, there is accountability and people will take care of their law enforcements. But the first question, why do we punish criminals? Okay, there is a kind of seriousness to that. To come to your question about does ethics take care of this, it doesn't. Okay, it doesn't. it gives a second order viewpoint as to what theories lead to which punishments. Okay, that's all. But it doesn't at any point tell here is this punishment that you should at all times give to a particular crime. Okay, because it's impossible, as ethics itself is neither empirical, okay, and Kant says that it is a rational enterprise, but it's not empirical, which means that we don't have any experience about ethical knowledge. It doesn't come from ethical experience. Okay, I if somebody is saying I am honest because I have seen my parents, they were honest, okay, I am drawing this from my experience, that's probably not what Kant would agree. But you can always say that, and that would be an empirical kind of ethics. But Kant would say maybe that's not the thing. I mean, even if people who are not having any parents, they may act completely ethically without seeing any human actions at all. Okay, and Bentham would say something different, like you act honest because there are certain consequences for that. It's good consequences. Okay, so I'm sorry, I am passing these questions from the second order perspective. Okay, but from the first order perspectives, codes, the Washington Accord and other things, there are criterion, okay, fixed already. Okay, so simple answer is we should punish because the society has to run. Okay, but that's not a proper thing, especially when it comes to capital punishment, because taking the life of a person by the state, okay, is that justified? Okay, I think your question goes into that direction. Okay, some people disagree, some people agree. Consequentially, some would say that if we kill that person, the state kills criminal or an offender, then suppose if there is a good consequence because of that, okay, then we can go for it. But Kant would probably say that at no point killing individuals for their crimes is justified universally. Okay, and again, in the case of Kant, there can be inconsistency, because from both ways, P and not P, both might just look plausible. Okay, so yeah, so the bottom line is that cheating in exams, that's our favorite example, is it morally justified or not? Okay, from the first order discourse, absolutely no, it's not justified. You wouldn't find any university in the world telling that cheating is justified. They will have codes for students. But from the second order perspective, we analyze it. If suppose in an exceptional case cheating leads to goodness for the whole community, then it is accepted, according to Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, the utilitarians. So I am going to give you more examples when I am discussing those clips. Okay, but this shouldn't just lead to a snowballing effect, like, oh, here is the ethics professor who is saying that there are exceptions, and I think if I cheat, then I may score better, and therefore I am going to get good grades, and it's going to do some good to the whole society. It's not that simple again. Okay, from your personal perspective, maybe cheating is okay because it gives you some advantage later on, but is it globally the case? Is it going to be globally the case? That we will see. Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to stop here, and if you have, I just wanted to, because there were a few questions in the email, I just wanted to give you that the impression that for ethics, good and bad are approached from different frameworks, from different theoretical frameworks. In the same way, you have in physics, say for example, a perspective of large bodies, mid-sized bodies, like what we do in mechanics, and you have quantum mechanics where we look at the world from a different perspective of very minute, nanoparticles or particles. The universe looks different there, right? Say for example, this table, from that perspective, is a bunch of atoms and molecules, and I don't really exist there, right? I am just a composite of all these different particles. So that's a perspective. And from the general relativity point of view, it's a different perspective. So if you can sort of stitch it together, well and good, but so far we have not been able to stitch it together even in physics, which means you can sort of imagine what would happen in ethics, because we are not holders of an empirical discipline. We don't know. We have different perspectives like deontology, virtue theory, consequentialism or utilitarianism, and so on. Like, we have much more, but these are the three major frameworks, and they propagate different proposals. Okay, so, and at the end of the course, I leave it to you to really decide, okay, what is the right thing, or what is the appropriate action in a particular scenario. Okay, and yeah, so yeah, looks like there is a silence. So feel free to talk. I'm not restricting you from that. At least in the online medium, due to technology, we have that freedom. So please feel to talk or ask questions, or at least about something that is even tangentially related to good actions or bad actions or ethics. Okay, so or raise your hands if you have questions. Okay, so I can understand, because I didn't cover much also in the couple of clips that I sent. Even with shortened clips, I don't think people are watching it that much. But unless you watch, the debate is difficult to follow. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and see you next week. But before that, I'm going to increase the pace slightly, and slightly meaning very slightly, minutely, and we'll also discuss reasoning patterns in ethics with a few examples. Okay, and I'm quite sure that there will be disagreements. Okay, there will be disagreements. So I'm looking forward to that, and I will see you next week. And I don't see any more comments. Okay, I'll see you next week then. Yeah.